I'd like to extend my greetings to all of those who are here, the Muslims, as Muslims we greet with Assalamu alaikum. And that's when we say peace be upon you. And it's what we call a dua or a prayer. I'm going to start off with a short introduction. What we usually do when we as Muslims, we open up with the Arabic, and then I'll do a little translating. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge with God from the accursed Satan to protect me from him influencing or intermingling in anything that I have to say today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We thank him he's the Lord and the cherisher of all the worlds. And when we say worlds, we mean that we as Muslims believe that God provides for everything, every living thing, the world of the plants, the world of the insects, the world of the animals, the world of the fish. These are all worlds. And so he provides and nourishes all of these worlds. And of course, the world of human beings. We thank him and we ask for his help. Before I get into my topic, I just want to establish a foundation, because we are living in really very critical times. It may not look like it because we here as Americans, we are very spoiled when you look and compare our lives to what we see in other places in the world. And so human beings have a natural propensity, a natural inclination to enjoy privilege, to enjoy things that are comfortable. And even though inherently, innately in us, there's an attribute, there's a trait in us to be concerned about others, but not to the extent, unfortunately, to where we will sacrifice our privilege and our comfort for someone else's. So when you are socially engineered to become accustomed to this, then sometimes if you're not guided, you will actually oppress others in order to maintain that and sustain that. And so briefly, this is something that I'm going to more or less elucidate or highlight in respect to the life of Malcolm X, so that we can understand the social conditions that were present at that time that literally molded or made a Malcolm X. If conditions weren't the way they were, Malcolm X probably would never have been a Malcolm X as we know him today. But the conditions and the circumstances, the social conditions, the social climate at that time caused him to take a certain course in life that in the beginning it might have looked like it was something bad, but it actually turned into something good and beneficial, as we will hopefully see, inshallah. But one thing I do want to mention is that in our book, the Quran, for those who are non-Muslims, our holy book mentions the origin of man. And it mentions the origin of man on many occasions. And there's some significant wisdom behind why God chooses to mention many times about man's origin. In one verse, he says, وَخَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. He says that, and we created man from nutfah. Nutfah in Arabic is sperm. He said we created man from sperm, and what's interesting about this is that nobody can refute this. It's all authentic. It's unadulterated. It's a fact that we all come from this despicable fluid called nutfa, or sperm. He says, فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. And then this individual who comes from this low substance becomes an open adversary. Khasim means someone who argues and disputes. So what God is over and over telling us, even in another verse, he says, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Does man give thought of the fact that there was a period of time when he wasn't even a thing mentioned? Every one of us in here, 100 years ago, we were not something mentioned. No one knew who we were, who we are, whatever. We didn't know. Then all of a sudden, something beyond our ability, beyond our control, decided when to bring us here and decided our gender, our color, our ethnic group, all of that. Now, we can use our intelligence and deny this reality or whatever. You're fooling yourself. The bottom line is none of us are responsible for us being who we are and being here in this existence. So now God does this in order to first and foremost let us know that we're all in the same boat, because we all come from the same origin. Then there's another statement says, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ مَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مَثَلًا لِلدُّنْيَا وَإِنْ كَزَّحَهُ وَمَلَّحَهُ فَانْظُرُوا مَا يُصِرُوا إِلَيْهِ. Now there's another statement made by the prophet who says that the analogy of this life is like what comes out of us as human beings. Now I'm starting my speech on Malcolm X in this way so that I can kind of formulate where I'm going and how I'm going to segue Malcolm X's life this way. So he says that the analogy of this world is like what comes out of us as human beings. Even if you season it, make it very delicious and succulent and savvy and taste so nice, just look how it ends up. So now this origin comes from a despicable piece of substance called sperm. Then you live life and enjoy it, and you're vibrant and you're energetic and you're living and you're intelligent and all of this. But at the end of it, it comes out just the same way as your bowels does. It comes out and you finished up and you something that's unclean, something, and that's a reality. I don't care how well the food tastes, when it comes out, it doesn't come out smelling the same way. You don't go in the washroom and be like, oh, that was Popeyes. No, not at all. And if you are able to determine that they ate Popeyes, you need to do something else in your life. If that's what you're into. So therefore, we have to begin to start changing things as people that's living now before we die. We are socially engineered to have xenophobia. In other words, just to dislike something or someone simply because I don't know them. I come from Chicago. I'm a Chicago fan. We are trained not to like each other because you all are Chicago Bucks fans, Green Bay Packer fans, Chicago Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks, and they doing horrible. And Green Bay Packers. So we have rivalry. Now it may seem fun, but it's a very microscopic aspect of something that's huge that is in all of us, and we have to begin to really work on rectifying this issue of finding every reason to foment insurrection among each other. In other words, to cause division and dislike each other. So Malcolm X was a victim of a particular, is that a brownie? Is that a brownie? No, I'm just joking. Malcolm X was a victim of circumstances. He was a young man born in the 20s 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, even today, I have no idea what goes on in Nebraska. It sounds cold, Nebraska. Sounds very cold. Mutual of Omaha, I think, is their Wild Kingdom used to, I don't think y'all remember that, but. So it was a lot of racism there. Now, when someone says racism, a lot of times we really don't know what racism is. Someone may say, well, what is racism? Someone may say, when somebody don't like somebody, that's racism. That's not racism. Racism is when a society is systematically structured in a way that gives privilege to one race over another. In other words, this particular race get the jobs, get better housing, get better education. So even if a African American black man says to a white man, I hate you, it doesn't affect his children from going to the best schools. The white man's system, or this system, the white man may say the same thing to the black person, or may not say anything, but the system is set up in a way that it may prevent and inhibit another race from being able to ascertain or achieve the same objectives. That's racism. And that's all over the planet. It's not just here. It wasn't just here. They have this in India and South Asia. They had it in Ireland. They had it all over the world. Somebody feels like they're more superior than someone else, so therefore it gives them the right and justification to feel like they can do whatever they can to oppress another race or another people. So Malcolm X was born at a time where America was going through this phase. So we're going to speed up a little bit. Malcolm X was inspired by his father, who was a Baptist preacher. And his father was influenced by a man by the name of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was a black nationalist, revolutionary. He was one who was teaching a lot about black people need their own. They need to just leave America, go back to Africa. So he tried to establish a movement of going back to Africa. So this type of influence, this type of vibe was permeating through a lot of people such as like Malcolm's father. So anyway, so Malcolm had about 8 brothers and sisters. There was a lot of them. And so his father was teaching all of them the same thing. So this is what inspired his family and inspired Malcolm. Malcolm's father, up under this kind of pressure, had to move and relocate many times because white supremacists did not appreciate this kind of talking. This was a reality. So he would move. And then he moved somewhere else, and then he moved. And he moved somewhere else, and then he moved. And then what happened was the Ku Klux Klan began to put so much pressure that one time they burned his house down. And then shortly after that, they killed Malcolm's father. They put him on a railroad track, and then they had a trolley run over him. That caused Malcolm's mother to have some mental problems that inhibited or prevented her from being able to properly take care of the children. So once they put her in a mental institute, then they split up Malcolm's siblings. Malcolm was blessed and anointed with some extreme intelligence. Now let me tell you, I'll mention something to you about us, okay, as human beings. I went to a Chinese restaurant a few years ago to visit a friend of mine. And he was working for this Chinese restaurant, and they had adopted him as a son. Just kind of, they really liked him. So when the restaurant closed, we all sat down and ate. Now, I don't know if you all know, but the Chinese culture, when at their tables, they have this little spin table, okay? So what they do is, like us in America, when we want the macaroni and cheese, we say, can you pass the macaroni? And so we passing it over, and can you give me the chicken, and can you give me the greens? And, so we're passing it at the table. With them, if you want the egg foo young, they just spin it to you. So you get it, you take some out, you put it back on, you need it, and you spin it. Hey, man, that was so cool. I thought that was so cool. I was like, wow. So, black folks, we just got to, so I started spinning. Hey, man, egg foo young and stuff was going all over the place, right? I'm just spinning. But I said to myself, it made me think of a verse in the Quran that talks about that God said he created all of us in different tribes and nations, and he created these distinctions and extraordinary, unique aspects so that what? Lita'arafu, so that we may learn one another and become acquainted. It's so intriguing to travel. I don't know if you all have traveled. I know many people have come from various places, but they say that Americans are the most knowledgeable people in the world, but the most ignorant of the world. We are. So when you travel, it amazed me that and I love traveling, so when I travel and I meet other Americans, I always ask them, man, what's the most fascinating experience? What do you see? They say, man, that we're so ignorant. We are so ignorant. We're so arrogant as a people that we feel like everybody needs to know about America. But when you travel, man, you meet so many different people who have been godly anointed with so many different aspects that is so beautiful, because we as human beings naturally become bored if something is the same every single day. I don't care how good it tastes, it can get boring. And that's why there's a myriad of various things that we taste and eat. And I went to the Whole Foods. Y'all have Whole Food out here? Yeah, we call it Whole Check because it's so expensive in Chicago. And I mean, just rice. I mean, they got blue rice and white rice and black rice and Mexican rice and all kind of British and Indian rice and basmati rice, and I mean, just rice. I mean, how much rice? It's beautiful. And everybody can cook rice a different way. So that makes it, all of this difference is so that, man, we can love one another and be acquainted and experience these things and keep life enjoyable. We're not meant to be the same. So anyway, Malcolm grew up bitter because his mother was put in a mental home, his father was killed, his siblings were separated, so now he's living in a foster home, and he had a brilliant mind. And so he was so intelligent that he desired to be a lawyer. His favorite teacher told him, when he expressed to him that he wanted to be a lawyer, he said, no, won't you be a carpenter, because it's impossible for a nigger to be a lawyer. So it dissuaded him. So facing these type of challenges, it caused Malcolm to say, you know what, forget it all. He quit school and he hit the streets. He worked little odd jobs here and there, but he messed around. He went to New York and he started involving himself in crime. Gambling, running what you call the numbers, the lottery. He was doing a lot of stuff. Running around with white women, running around just fornicating. He's doing the whole thing, drugging it, everything. Just like they showed on the movies. Messed around, did a crime, got time. They sentenced him to 10 years. When he went to prison, that's when a lot of people, they make changes in prison. I noticed this when I was in Indiana State Prison. I worked there. I wasn't. I just want to make sure I could see them, man. I could look. It's like I knew it. He looked like Malcolm. But when I was working in the prison, I noticed how brothers was making serious changes in their lives because now they had an environment that really kind of set them down and caused them to think. So this is what happened to Malcolm. So we're going to speed up real quickly. So Malcolm went to prison, and then he began to reconnect with some of his siblings who was writing them letters. They would come visit him, and they started back rehashing that Marcus Garvey kind of spirit of, enhancing and helping to uplift the black people and this and that. And then he ran into some members of the Nation of Islam. And he was inspired by their militant, disciplined kind of theology, their ways, So he was inspired enough to where he began to study. This man studied the dictionary. This is one of the most extraordinary things. He studied and almost literally memorized the dictionary from A to Z, whichever book it was. And so therefore he became extremely articulate. He was very charismatic. He had already lived a life on the street, so there was a certain type of backbone that he had just coming from a hard life. And then he also had that deep-seated bitterness from what has taken place with his parents. So now all of this is now becoming molded into this Malcolm X, because his name was Malcolm Little. So the X in Nation of Islam was in place of, because the nation would say that, look, that last name is the name of your slave master. So in order to disassociate yourself with that history and that aspect, just put X, the unknown. So that's when he became Malcolm X. So after 7 years, he joined the Nation of Islam. And do you know that the nation at that time, and Elijah Muhammad was the leader, his name used to be Elijah Poole, then it turned to Elijah Muhammad. The Nation of Islam at that time, in 1930-something, it only had 500 members. Once Malcolm became the national spokesman for the Nation of Islam, it turned into 30,000 members of the Nation of Islam. Now, we got to explain, what is the Nation of Islam? The Nation of Islam was a nationalistic organization with religious overtones or underpinnings. It would talk Islam, but mostly what it was just a nationalistic movement. And the same thing today. But it have a little bit more Islam in it, but for the most part, it's still a black nationalistic movement. Now, Malcolm became the head spokesman for the Nation of Islam. So he was traveling all over the country, meeting people and galvanizing the African American community. He was something special. He was something new. He was like the Kobe Bryant or the Michael Jordan. I don't know nobody for the Milwaukee Bucks, so don't get mad at me. So now he became so popular that they became a little concerned, because now he was literally looking better than the leader himself, Elijah Muhammad. So now in every movement, there's always some type of devilish play. So now the FBI is looking at them, because any movement, it don't have to just be a black movement, any established structured movement in America is going to become an issue if it goes antithetical to the political agenda of this country. Whatever it is. They don't care what it is. It could be white group, it could be whatever. They're always there. They with the Ku Klux Klan trying to make sure they don't do anything too crazy or whatever. They're always there. They might even be here. Any FBI members? That would be interesting. Your brother raised his hand. Thanks. No, don't play. No, I'm just joking. Now, let me explain something. I'd like to just put a side note. You know, one of the horrible things, the sad things about when we dislike each other, or somebody's trying to keep someone else down, or somebody's trying to oppress someone, is that, say, for example, the brother that came up here and read Quran, say, for example, we was in a system that oppressed him. Say, for example, we just oppressed him, stopped him from getting an education, stopped him from being able to achieve, and express in his exploratory, traits and qualities. And so now what happens is when you oppress someone, every one of us have been gifted with something to offer to society, to humanity. If I oppress him, then what I actually do is I prevent myself from benefiting from what he had been just actually given, because I don't know what he's been blessed with. So I can literally be dying from a disease that, unbeknown to me, he had been given the cure. But how would I know if I don't give him the freedom to be able to express this gift? You understand what I'm saying? People have been given things. Everybody, if you look at the world that we live, everybody need everybody. I don't care how independent you want to be in your life, whatever it is, if you got to comb your hair, somebody has made that comb. You brush your teeth, somebody's made the toothbrush, somebody's made Colgate, somebody has made Aim, somebody has made the bags that you use your groceries, somebody has planted the seeds that you eat. We all interdependent. We need each other. So you can play all antisocial all you want, but there's always somebody that you need to do something for you, because this is human nature. So if God had just created everybody and made them all doctors, then we wouldn't have farmers, we wouldn't have these people. So everybody, can you imagine how much it takes to manage human beings? I mean, can you imagine what it takes? We don't even really understand what we're dealing with. This is an amazing, you all have different, you're in school and you have different types of careers that you do. Some guys likes biology, another person like chemistry, whatever. We can't have everybody in everything. So therefore, who is it that makes the choice to insert in us a particular proclivity towards a particular career in order to what? To benefit humanity. Somebody has to disproportion that out in such a way to where there's a balance. Because if not, there's no way in the world we could do that. We can be governing over 1 billion people, and you can't place certain things in people to make them say, okay, we need this many doctors, we need this many lawyers, so therefore I got to insert this in you, insert that in. There's no way we can do that. We just have to live with each other and then see who does this and who does that. So anyway, I don't want to get too philosophical. So anyway, Malcolm he was the Nation of Islam. So now we speed up a little bit. Now the Nation of Islam, they was teaching this black thing. Black people, God, because of the fact that, white folks had taught about Jesus and gave us a white picture of Jesus. So it had played a psychological effect on us, because when we looked at the oppression of white people and then we looked at who our Savior was, it just kind of confused us. And so we was going through some stuff. So what the Nation of Islam did, they just flipped the script. So they said, look, the black man is God. And then so they start telling the black man is God, and they start saying the white man is the devil. Now, that's not true, but it seemed like at that time that was a philosophy or a theology that was quite acceptable, because all the oppression was coming from a particular race of people. So therefore, you tell me they're the devil, hey, I'm jumping on it. I don't care if it ain't religious, it ain't got nothing to do with God, but it seems like it's the truth, because this is what's happening. Anybody do something to you, whether they black, whatever the color it is, you believe that there's something evil about it, and you can coin it with the devil. So this is what the Nation of Islam was doing. So therefore, they got all these, and Malcolm was going to, he was on television shows. He was doing a lot of different things, and he became extremely popular. So now the Nation of Islam became jealous. Some members became and started whispering to their leader, Elijah Muhammad, that Malcolm's trying to supersede you. But Malcolm X was very sincere, and he loved Elijah Muhammad. So now things changed. He became tested. Okay, we got a few minutes, and then we'll open up for questions. During that time, Kennedy was killed. Elijah Muhammad made a statement to the Nation of Islam members that nobody make any comment to the news regarding the assassination of J.F. Kennedy, including Malcolm. But at that time, now Malcolm began to start feeling some things. He started seeing some corruption. He started seeing that, wait a minute, this movement is not as sincere as I thought it was, because he started seeing some things that was going on that he didn't like. People were stealing money. They had what you call the black mafia in Philadelphia, where guys was, man, robbing banks, and then they were bringing some of the money back to Elijah Muhammad, and they trying to say, hey, we here to build a nation. So they was doing crime to support the Nation of Islam. Malcolm didn't like that. Malcolm was doing things sincerely, and he really believed in Elijah Muhammad as being the messenger of God, because that's what they were saying, that Elijah Muhammad was the messenger of God. So the people were believing that, and Malcolm believed that. Then so Malcolm made a statement to the news, to the press. They said when they asked him about JFK's murder, assassination, he said, the what? Who know the quote? He said, the chickens come home to roost. What does that mean? What he's trying to say is that all the stuff that America was doing and creating and so many problems in the world, that evil that they was doing, it came around and came back to America. Not just the oppression, the 400 years of slavery, of this and that. No, it had something to do with what was going on in Chile, what was going on in other parts, in Africa, in African country, in Libya, all over that. They were doing a lot of different things, as we do. Now, I want y'all to understand something, because everybody's not evil. But at the same time, there are evil people in the world. We have to understand this. There are evil people in the world. I know we want to live this, this beautiful, optimistic, utopic, idealistic life. But there are evil people. I'm going to tell you, one day I was walking and I saw a CD on the ground. Some guy had thrown a CD out. So I put the CD in. I wanted to pick up the CD. I wiped it off. I wanted to see what is the CD on the ground. When I put the CD in my CD player, it was the rawest rap. I'm talking about underground rap. It started off talking about B-I-T-C-H. This is what it just started out with. Now, why I'm bringing this up is because in this rap, I'm listening to it, and these guys are talking about all the crime they doing, all the drugs they selling, the this and that. And it's one thing they said. They said that, look, we're not trying to hear about nothing right. This is what we do. We devils. And that made me think. Because sometimes when we're around each other and things are so happy and we think, man, why is the world like this? No, people are not really like this. But no, we have to accept the fact that there are some people that they have chosen to literally be evil. We got to understand this. So there are people in prison that have chosen a life. That's a reality. So it can be people in positions of government, people, whatever. Anybody know Richard Pryor? Remember Richard Pryor? He was a comedian, right? He died. Richard did a program in prison called Stir Crazy. It was a real prison somewhere out in Alabama somewhere. So he met real inmates or whatever, and they did this program, this movie or whatever. And so when he got back on stage to talk about his experience meeting inmates, real convicts, they asked him, they said, how was it? And Richard was like, man, he was like, man, it was really an experience, man. I really met these guys. I really understood what they had gone through in their lives. And, some guys had just done murder after murder. And I asked him, like, why did you kill the people? And he was like, because they were home and, and this and that. And he said, man, I learned one thing, man. And he said, thank God we got prisons, And it was funny because you think he's going to say, man, we really need to help them. He's like, man, thank God we got prisons. And it's true, because there are some people that, man, we got to have prisons, because there's some people that they're not about doing right. So therefore, we can't sit here and just cry about these things and feel despondent and despair. We have to work towards doing something about it. Because what is the saying? I can't quote it verbatim, but they say that the only thing that helps evil people to be successful is that righteous people do what? Nothing. That's the reason why evil people. Bad people are successful only if righteous people do nothing. So therefore, we have this dichotomy. We have this contrast. We have right people and wrong people. So Malcolm, he messed around. When he did that and made that statement, that caused an uproar in the Nation of Islam. They silenced him for 90 days. After that, he was so upset. Then he began to start finding things unethical and immoral about his leader, Elijah Muhammad. And that's the part that crushed him. And when it crushed him, he found out, man, that he was having sex with his secretaries. He found out that he was having babies by them. And so that really tore him apart. And so therefore Malcolm began to start now wondering in his mind. Now you got threats on his life. You got people talking about doing something to him. You got the FBI man spying on him. Even one of his bodyguards was an FBI putting wires on themselves, listening to him. So now he started feeling the heat. He don't feel the comfort of the Nation of Islam. Then his radical speaking had the black churches scared, so they didn't want to do anything with him. So now he's just kind of out there. So therefore he began to start traveling. And he traveled to Saudi Arabia. And when he traveled to Saudi Arabia and he traveled to other places in Saudi Arabia, that's when he was greatly inspired of what the religion of Islam really was. He began to meet brothers from Turkey. He began to meet brothers from Kosovo and various places in the world that have white Muslims. And so therefore he was drinking out of the same cups and he was eating out of the same plates. And now he began to have this different experience because he was saying, wow, I thought I was a Muslim. I realized that, man, what the Nation of Islam was teaching me was not what is traditionally considered as authentic Orthodox Islam. So now he started realizing that, man, when I come back to America, if America lives like this, then we'll be a better country. So he come back now more open-minded. Like I'm saying to us as Americans, that when we travel and then you come back to America, it would do something for you. It'll cause you to become more open-minded. So Malcolm X became more open-minded and he came back on a different program. His politics was nationalism. His politics was like trying to do whatever he can to help to uplift black people, to take them out of their social conditions, to help them to direct their attention to being educated, to being empowered, to being self-independent, to not being under this type of oppression. But at the same time, his religion was Islam. It's just that he didn't know much Islam. And so when he came back, he was up under so much pressure that's when they began to start making the call to say assassinate Malcolm X. And so when he went to a particular, they had tried to shoot him on several occasions. He had bodyguards. And then he went to a particular speech in New York, and 3 men walked up on him, and they shot him 15 times, and they killed him. He had made statements about the fact that he actually felt and knew that that time was coming, because it just was too many attempts on his life. Blew up his house, set fires, sent his phone calls to his family, and so therefore they killed him. We honor Malcolm X as Muslims because we believe that, number one, that after his experience in Mecca and making the holy pilgrimage, that what we call aqidah, his belief had began to start taking a shift, where he began to start gradually removing himself from that hardcore black and white to more of a social leader, political leader, but at the same time, he began to start trying his best to embrace the traditional way of Islam, which is every person who believes, whether they're white, they're black, they're yellow, whatever they're from in the world, if they believe in this one creator, this one God, then they're all a part of the same way. There's no difference. And in the Quran it says, Allah says in the Quran, he says, in أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. ما أكرمكم. I can't remember the verse. إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. That people, the most honorable person in the eyes of God has nothing to do with color. It has something to do with your mindfulness and consciousness and obedience to God. That's it. If you're white and you're righteous, and you're black and you're unrighteous, then God favors the white person. If you're Arab and you're righteous, and you're South Asian and you're unrighteous, God favors the Arab. It doesn't matter, because he's the one that put the color and the ethnicity in us. So therefore, it has nothing to do with what we are on the outside. It has a lot to do with what we are on the inside. So there's a whole lot of information about Malcolm X, and I would encourage all of us to go and read the biography by Alex Hayes of Malcolm X, and of course you got many things on, you can research about him. This is just a little small, succinct presentation about Malcolm X. We love him. We believe that he died as a martyr, which is called a shaheed, simply because he was killed in the line of doing something to help to make a difference in the social conditions in America as a whole. And so we honor him, we respect him. He didn't come into the fold of Islam in the way that we as Muslims practice it today. That's because he was at the very early stages of his transformation. But we believe that he had every intent to embrace it in his complete way and to learn it, but he wasn't given that opportunity because he was assassinated. So therefore, I will end here, and we will open up for questions if there are any, and I would like to thank you all for your listening to this lecture. Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh, come on, it wasn't that good. Yes.
What do you think Malcolm X is like? What do you think Malcolm X's aspiration in life was?
I'm sorry?
What do you think Malcolm X's aspiration in life was?
His aspiration was, the major thing was to enhance the social conditions of African American people and to just bring justice, to remove the racism, to remove those impediments and obstacles and obstructions that was in the way of allowing black people to have their godly rights, just like their godly human rights like anyone else. This is what he aspired. But again, it's not always, it's a bad thing, but at the same time, conditions produce certain things. So therefore, if there was no racism, then we wouldn't even be talking about Malcolm, because he probably would have gone on to be a lawyer and did something else. But these type of conditions sometimes help to develop certain things in us. We don't want to develop under these type of conditions, but when they are present, and this is the world we live in, and we sometimes have to deal with the evil and unrighteousness, then we have to be able to find a way to deal with them. And so Malcolm was one of those spokespeople who motivated African Americans to try to at least begin to combat the challenges of this type of social oppression that was existing in America at that time. And it still exists in some form and fashion now. It's just not as overt. It's kind of like, kind of inconspicuous, but it's still present, and we're still working through that. And I think that all of us, in some form or fashion, are trying our best to work through that. But we got people in the world that love to see these types of issues, division. Now it's the Muslims against America, then it was the Indians against America, and then it was the Japanese against America, and then it was the Germans against, So again, I told you, there's people that are just thriving on trying to keep this type of division and hatred and animosity and enmity in the world because somebody benefits from it. Just like if I sell guns. If I sell guns, then somebody got to be shooting in order for me to make some money. So now if everybody's peaceful, I don't make any money. So now if I tell you that, that person over there said this about you or whatever, and then they, and they start, and they said you got a big head and such and such, and then you get mad, you say, well, look, hey, I got this gun. Just give me $10, you straight, you know what I'm saying? You can take care of your business. And that's how it is, you see? So America sell arms. We got to make some money. So we got to create some problems. That's how it is sometimes, But we got good people too, and I believe everybody in here are good people. And I think that whatever field that we play in this world, then we have to work towards trying to do our best to be good, and to do. If you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be the best one you can be. If you're going to be an engineer, be the best one you can be to play your part in helping humanity. I think there was a speech I gave just this Sunday. Was that Sunday? Yeah, it was Sunday. And I just gave an example. A lot of people wasn't here, but I just talked about this little situation where at this particular, I don't know where the country is or whatever, but at a certain time of the year, starfish get pushed up to shore. So it'd be like thousands of them on the shore. And so at this particular place, there was a man who was taking the starfish and throwing them back into the water, because if they're not in the water, they're going to die. So many of them just died. For whatever reason, the eco wisdom behind why this has to happen, but so many of them just died. So he was taking some and he was throwing them back. He'd take another one, he'd throw it back. He'd take another one, he'd throw it back. So a man who was walking towards him asked him, he said, man, there's thousands of them. What are you doing? Why are you trying? You can't save all these starfish. And he told me, he said, I'm not trying to save all of them. He said, but I'm going to make a difference in this one's life. You see, so therefore, each one he was throwing in, it just, he know that I was saving that one. So therefore, hey, our job is not to save the world. Our job is just to play a part in helping the process. So therefore, whatever you do in your life, just try to be a good person. Try to be righteous and try to, obtain the objective of life. Find out what the purpose of life is. Why are you here? Why are we all here? Why are we here? You gotta understand this question. Everything around here has a reason for it. This microphone, that cup, that glass telephone. Why are you here and you're the most brilliant? You're a human being. You gotta ask that question. What's your purpose? Figure it out. Yes?
After Malcolm's trip to Mecca, did he continue his role with the Nation of Islam, or was he kind of doing his own thing?
No, he was ousted out of the Nation of Islam, which inspired him to go to Mecca. Because in the Nation of Islam's teachings, it speaks a lot about Mecca, the black stone, and all of that. So therefore, once they ousted him, and he wanted to resign anyway because of all the stuff he was hearing, and he felt so bad that he had helped so many people join the Nation of Islam and come to find out it was just a fraudulent movement, then he wanted to see, well, what is this Mecca all about? And so when he went there, that's when it just opened his eyes. He was like, wow, what we're practicing. I mean, they wasn't praying, they wasn't making no wudu, they wasn't doing any of those things. So then therefore, when he come back, it confirmed that, hey, I need to make a change. And that's the way they're practicing it is the way we should be practicing it here. And if we adopt that type of behavior over there where he's intermingling with white people and people from all over the world, he said if America adopt that, we'd be a much better country. And he just changed it. He stopped being like a racist. Because see, when black people talk about racism, sometimes we can be a little racist too. Why? Because we feel like it's justified. You see what I'm saying? Because they, them people don't hate us, so we hate them now. No, we don't do that. You don't respond the same way, So therefore, that's how it was with him. Question? Yes.
Was everyone in the Nation of Islam, did they think Elijah Muhammad was God?
That's an excellent question. The young man asked, did everybody in the Nation of Islam think that Elijah Muhammad was God? No. A lot of them knew he wasn't, but you have to understand that they were building a nation and they were making so much money and they had so much control and power that a lot of people was building their empires on this thinking, this philosophy. So it was just a gimmick. It was just a game. So therefore, if we can make money on making the people believe something, then there's always people that's just gullible and they're innocent and they just believe that this is the right thing. But then you have other people in the back of it orchestrating the whole thing and benefiting materially from this particular gimmick. And this is just what happens in the world. You got people that just run gimmicks. The Wheel of Fortune. It's a gimmick. Price is Right, whatever it is. Let's make a deal. It's just all gimmicks, just to make some money. And then you exploit people that's sincere, looking for God, looking for the right thing. There was a Muslim sister, I'm going to answer your question, but there's a Muslim sister who said that when she was in Michigan, she lived in Michigan, a little small town in Michigan, may have about, 2,500 people, 3,500 people in this particular community. She said she used to go to church every Sunday. She said one day her girlfriend decided to go across the street to get some candy. So when they went across the street to get some candy, because they were young, they was about 15 years old, and being made to go to church, it was part of their little town. She said that she saw a bus come in. When the bus came in, she said she saw all the people get off the bus with wheelchairs. They were holding their wheelchairs. She said, so then, they didn't pay no attention. They was like, oh, wheelchairs or whatever. So they went on, bought their candy, and they went to church. When the sermon started and the preacher was up there talking, who will come here and God is going to help you and Jesus and such and such. So they started rolling up there with their wheelchair. And these are the same people that carried the wheelchair off the bus. And so she said, they started looking, they started, wait a minute, these people were saying that. They said, just say in the name of Jesus and you can walk. And he got up and he started walking in the name of Jesus and said, I can walk, And she said after that she left the church and never went back. Because it was a gimmick. They all came in the back with their wheelchairs, and then it made it look like that they couldn't walk until they got inspired by this preacher who's supposed to be sincere, had the spirit in them, and allowed them to be able to walk. And then the money boy, the bucket started going around, donate, 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 you know what I'm saying? And then it became a big mega church, And I'm not trying to say anything about any Christians or whatever. I'm just saying that specific church was running a gimmick. And this is what happened. Yes.
Two questions. One is about Milwaukee, Wisconsin in particular. One is Milwaukee's, I think, the 8th year now is rated the #1 most segregated city in the country. And Wisconsin also has more black men locked up per capita than any other state. So when you talk about social injustice and Malcolm, my question is, where are today's Malcolms, if any, and why or why not?
Man, that's a very good question, bro. I think that they are, one of the reasons is because I think it's the concept of if you can't beat them, join them. So many of the maybe people who are qualified as black leaders that would be able to help to, play a part in eradicating and rectifying this problem, I think that a lot of them is just simply sold out. It's just about, hey, man, whatever I can get. If I can get some money in my pocket. I met Jesse Jackson one time in the end. He was right there with Martin Luther King, and he was about, Operation Push, and it was about, man, the black spirit or whatever. But you have a word called attrition. Anybody know what attrition means? Attrition is when you just keep wearing something out, and then after a while, man, you just be like, man, forget it, man. I'm tired of fighting. You see? And so therefore, this is what happened. The society that we live in now is just, and then it's such a delusion because, again, a racist, institutionalized racism is so inconspicuous that people don't even believe that it's really going on. Just like you had to come up with the statistics in order to really see it. People don't really think about that. How many people per capita, what did he say, rated? How did he even come up with this? Who cares? This is the reality. Who cares? So now it's just a thing of, man, as long as I'm eating every day, man, and man, I don't want to fight about that, man, or whatever. I'm cool, man. I got my car, man. I got my house, whatever. No, man, we still have to keep that fight up to, because somebody's not benefiting. Somebody's not getting their rights. Somebody's being oppressed. We all are some form of fashion being oppressed. I really believe, and I mentioned this Sunday, I really believe that technology is a good thing, but at the same time, I think that there's some evil intent behind technology to kind of create a disconnection between us as human beings. I mean, we text more now to the point that they're saying that a lot of people are not knowing how to write anymore. We're typing so much. And not only texting, but I told the people the other day, that just this past Sunday, that there was a husband and wife that they were having a dispute in the living room by texting. They was in the same living room, and they were texting. They can't even square it out, so you see. It was like, send to you, you know what I'm saying? And they in the same living room, So this, and I'm telling you, this is done intent. I really believe, I'm not some conspiracy theorist or something, but I believe that there's always good and bad in everything depending on how you utilize it, okay? So there's good in it, but then it also can be bad. There's a country, and I can't remember the country, but when they stand at a stop sign or a stoplight, before they move and it's time to walk, everybody kind of touch each other. I don't remember what country this is, but they kind of touch each other. They keep a type of connection. In Senegal, I don't know if you know the Senegalese people. These people have a certain type of natural characteristic trait of being very calm and able to reconciliate. So they hire Senegalese ambassadors to go to countries that are feuing with each other in order to bring some type of peace. They are naturally peaceful people. The Senegalese, to the point that during the Eid celebration, the celebration of Muslims after they fast, that everybody after the prayer, they leave the prayer hall, they leave the mosque, and everybody that they meet on the streets, they tell them, forgive me. I apologize if I've done anything wrong. Forgive me. I apologize. Imagine if we had Christmas and everybody was saying, forgive me, apologize, Merry Christmas, forgive me, I apologize if I've done something wrong to you. Forgive me, I apologize. Imagine how that keeps that connection. Russia did an experiment. I talked about this Sunday. Just to show you the reality of this. Russia did an experiment in some 1930-something, 40-something, where they had 100 babies. They put 50 babies to the left and 50 babies to the right of the nursery. 50 babies to the right was just given the basics. Change the diapers, feed them, clean them, or whatever, and put them down. 50 babies to the left was given the basic, but they was also given more. Picked up, hugged, cuddled, kissed, gaga, goo-goo, all that. The 50 babies that was given the basic, every single one of them died. It wasn't 37. It wasn't 14, it wasn't 15. Every single one of them died. And that experiment was an experiment to show that the human being has to have this type of connection. If not, we're going to be missing something, and something's going to develop in us that we're not going to like. We got to have hugging. You got to be told that I love you. You love me. I love you too. These things are part of our social. Even cats rub on each other. I know we can outdo some cats. For real. This is what we have to be, people like. But this texting, now we don't even want to talk no more. We just text it, just call. How many of us have ever done those prompts where they say, press 1? If you want to press 2, don't you get mad? You be like, man, I just want to talk to somebody. Because those options are not the ones you want. It's like that, seriously. It kills us, yes.
Why does it seem that black people are so attracted to Islam?
He said, why does it seem like black people are so attracted to Islam? Because the Islamic principles promotes a type of justice. And that is attractive to a people who feel and believe and live a life where they're not getting a fair treatment. So anybody, just like, for example, revolutions start a lot of time by a person getting up and now motivating the people based on informing them how they're being dealt with wrongfully. There was a guy named Billy Sunday in the 20s. He got up and became people don't even pretty much know Billy Sunday, but he came up and he motivated people. Why? Because in the 20s, people wasn't getting certain things, and it was oppression, it was the recession, and so therefore he was up there saying, this is what they're doing to you. And people naturally gravitate to that which appears to be in a position to provide them with that which will give them what it is that they're not getting. So Islam is a religion of justice and peace. It may be erroneously depicted by what the brother said about in the news, in the media, whatever, because we got people that have a political agenda. And so Islam is a threat to American society because of our principles, because of our justice. You see, because of the things that we believe. So therefore, black people have a greater inclination towards Islam due to the fact that it appears to be able to give them some understanding and give them justice that they're not getting in this society. So yeah, they're naturally, it's all over. The fastest growing religion they say is Islam. Last time I remember, and majority of the people that's embracing it are African Americans and Hispanics. Because these are the people but the privileged people, there's no need. There's not a great inclination. Why? Because how my life gonna be better and I'm already getting everything. When you're privileged, and and you know what? I don't know if you all know this individual, but I recommend everybody just for knowledge to look, huh?
Tim Wise?
Yep. Look this guy up. Tim Wise. This guy here. How many people heard of Tim Wise? Raise their hand. This guy here, he's so rough that I ain't never heard nobody better, even Malcolm. Because he's talking from a position of privilege. The man is rough. Another one, look up. Y'all know this one? Stan. Stan the white man. Now, I know there's white people in here. I'm not one of them types to try to make you feel uncomfortable because you're in here. Because white people, we got to understand. Because, look, if it was flipped the script and black people had done all the oppression, I would have to talk like Tim Wise speak and say, look, black people wrong. Bottom line. Simple as that. I would want to be on the side of right. If black people was oppression and black people doing, because black people do stuff too. For real. So therefore, we're about trying to be right. We don't care about no black and white thing. We're about, look, man, anybody that's doing wrong, we want to try to remove it. We have to do what's right. Bottom line, right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't care what the color is. But y'all check out Tim Wise. It's gonna be hard to stop listening. And check out Stan the White Man. Stan the White Man is a cartoon. But it'll tell you it's deep. Anybody heard of Stan the White Man? That's a deep one there. It's a cartoon, but it gives you an understanding of, what's going on. Check it out. Be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, real deep. Anything else? Because I'm hungry. Okay, go ahead.
Could you expound on the relationship between Dr. King and Malcolm X?
I don't know much about their relationship, but I do know that they talked. And I do know that it had appeared to be that they was having some friction. Why? Because Malcolm was about any means necessary. And Martin Luther King was about nonviolence and being peaceful. So sometimes Malcolm had been known to say some things that was contrary towards how Martin Luther King's approach was. He wasn't for, but you got to understand they came from two different environments. Malcolm's foundation was established through a certain type of background that created a certain kind of mindset. So his thing was like, man, gangster, man, let's just do it. Let's take it to the streets. And Martin was more educated. Just like Marcus Garvey was just a simple individual, he was just like a revolutionary, but W.B. Du Bois was more educated. So therefore, and this is what we're dealing with today. Some of the guys that's, kind of, street or whatever, they have one particular approach, but then some of the educated people like, who's the professor for Harvard, got the afro? Yeah, Cornel West. These guys are very, these erudite and they're intellectuals, and so they take a different approach. So they may have the same aspirations, but they just have a different way of going about doing it. So Malcolm met Martin, and I think there was a time when Martin and Malcolm did kind of come together in terms of agreeing that they have to continue the process of working against the oppression of black people here in America. Just a different method. Yes.
Why did he choose the Islamic name that he chose for himself?
Malcolm Shabazz?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that he got the name. I don't know where he got the name from. That's a good question. Yes. And if anybody know these answers, if I don't know, then if you know them, you can answer.
We have most of the MSA members here. One thing that, when we look at the life of Malcolm X or Muhammad Ali even, they were able to sell or present a version of Islam that became acceptable, right or wrong, in the American context. When you look at the dawah that happens nowadays, I don't know if we enjoy the same level of acceptability or authenticity that, for example, they were able to have. Because they were actually authentic American figures representing Islam. So we being on a college campus, how can we kind of learn from that?
I don't know. See, because social conditions create a certain kind of, again, when people are not eating, it's you become more concerned about how to eat. But when you're eating, then you're not concerned about, I'm trying to give you a picture that, here, our lives are so comfortable. It's a different. 20 years ago when I used to talk to college campuses, man, it was like more of a spirit of God in people or whatever. Now they have worked so hard in removing God out of the picture that, man, you don't have this same type of response anymore. I can really literally see the change because everything is about now just trying to remove God completely out of the picture. So now there's more of a push of, atheism. There's more of a push of, science. Everything's just defined by science, and evolution and so therefore it's like the world that we're living in is just probably just an indication of how decadent things are seeming to become. And so therefore, no matter what methods you choose, you have to, of course, try to come up with some ways to try to figure out how to, give the dawah and how to, teach people about Islam. Then you got more media to influence the people. When I was growing up, television, I'm not that old, but television cut off at 12 o'clock. I don't know if y'all remember that. Anybody remember that? At 12 o'clock, it was the national anthem, right? And then after that, there was no more television. So therefore, it forced you to do something else. Then we didn't have remote control. It's amazing because it may sound like I'm old, but I'm not old. It's just that's how fast technology has developed. So we didn't have remote control, so you just couldn't sit back. You had to agree on something. Channel 7, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Now you got thousands of channels. It's 24 hours, So now the more you inundate people with all of these distractions, then the harder they're trying to get them to be attentive to something that's real and something that's substance and something religious. It's harder nowadays. People just, even attention spans, man, it's just harder. This is what we up against. So we have to come up with methods and mechanisms to try to offset this. It's tough. Yes.
I'll make a comment on two things. One is we talked about Malcolm and Martin's relationship. just for clarity, Martin Luther King was an aggressive pacifist. And Malcolm was not some vigilante just off the street talking about go do things by any means necessary. He was against being a pacifist. But he was talking about defending yourself by any means necessary.
Good
So
point.
you don't have to sit there
Good
and just
point.
getting beat.
Good
Now,
point.
there was a place for that Martin Luther King really brought across, because in order to show the social injustice of white people in this country, when you're sitting there being extremely passive and allowing yourself to get beat, he actually won hearts over from other people who otherwise were racist, continually and institutionalized. However, Malcolm was like, we're not just going to sit and take that. We're going to defend ourselves by any means necessary. So they disagreed on the methodology, but they agreed upon the uprising of black people within the most oppressed people in this country.
Excellent.
So it's totally different than thinking we're going to go out there and get justice by any means necessary. That's a militant action or vigilante action. He didn't support that whatsoever. He supported protecting yourself, keeping yourself alive, and defending yourself by any means necessary.
And that's the same concept of Islam. Jazakallah khairan, man, that was excellent. That's the same concept of Islam. Islam is depicted as this aggressive religion. No, it's a religion that teaches us that, look, man, it's peace, but then if somebody is coming to do something to you, then you have every right to protect yourself. So this is what, like he said, and I'm glad you cleared that up, man. Malcolm, because it make it sound like he just out there wild and buck wild. And you're right. No, he was about trying to just say, look, man, if somebody's slapping you, then you slap back. As simple as that. We're not going to turn the other cheek, And so therefore, and like he said, Martin had a different type of approach and it takes a heck of a sacrifice to let people hit you and you don't do anything. Because sometimes, when people are trying to depict you as being something bad, but they can't see the bad in them people because of your actions. You doing so much wrong. They said, man, I can't see nothing because you keep doing everything. So this is his approach. He was like, if we could just withstand this, maybe we can pull some people, because every white person ain't racist. And there was a lot of white people, man, that did not like what was going on. It's just that there's peer pressure now, because there were white people that was literally getting hung and getting lynched and getting killed, because if they was anywhere new, if there was from these white supremacists, if they found out that you seem like you like black people, then they would kill you too. So therefore, when you're in that type of situation, there's a lot of pressure, because you know that if I step outside of this, then man, I'm excommunicated, and that's kind of rough. So a lot of people hid their dislike inside because they was in a situation. There was 4 men who killed one girl in Alabama. I think they blew up a church in Alabama and killed a black girl, and I think they killed some other people. They blew up a church in Alabama. These 4 guys who was I don't think they was Ku Klux Klansmen, but they were white supremacists. So what happened was they got away with it for a long time, but they had a little niece. And the niece heard them come in talking about it. Yeah, we blew the little black girl up, so and so and so. She said that bothered her all her life. So when she got older, she decided to tell on them guys, man, 70-something years old. And now they're in prison right now because she told that they was the ones that had done it. Because it bothered her. She did not feel satisfied until she did something about it. You see, so you never know who it is that you're going to move or inspire towards a certain way. And so therefore, every white person, there was a lot of white people. There was even in the movie of Malcolm X that there was a white girl that came up and said, look, I want to help. How can I help? And he was like, you can't help, because he still had that little thing in him, that strong black afro thing. We don't need no white people doing that. But there was a lot of white people that did not like what was going on in the world. There's good people all the time. Whatever color it is, there's always good people that do not like to see what's going on in the world. And so therefore they do things that's what Tim Wines is doing right now. If you hear him talk, I'm telling you, he sounds so sincere, that he's an inspiration. And he's very articulate, and he even said that no black person would ever be able to get up here and say what he's saying. They can't. It's amazing. Check it out. Any questions? Yes.
What's the best way to recognize when a gimmick is being done? Like, how do you figure out what's authentic, especially with big movements?
Just be sincere, and God will guide your heart. All you have to do is just make sure that you're authentic. And eventually something will come to you. And then when it comes to you, then you have to act on it. Don't sit there and just pretend like it's not happening. When you see a gimmick and you feel it and you pray, you got to pray. And when you really feel that, man, this just doesn't seem right, because it's always going to be something to let you know that this ain't right. Something's not right about this. You see? Some people go to places or whatever and they know something's not right. Just like a lot of members of the Nation of Islam, they knew it wasn't right, but it was feeding some type of void. You know, they love to hear that black talk. They know that, man, Elijah Muhammad is not God. They know he's not the messenger of God. Black people are not God. They knew that all these things. They know these guys are running game. But I just love to hear about black people and this and that. And that's why you hear Farrakhan just so inspirational. If you hear him talk, I mean, he moves you or whatever. But he running game. As simple as that. He just, you know, he's not telling the full truth about Islam. You know? And I'm not here to criticize anyone, but I'm just saying that when we talk about Islam, we know what we're talking about. What he's saying about Islam is not our traditional teachings. So he knows he's running some kind of game, but, you know, he has some reason for doing it. And, you know, so when you want to be, you know, just follow your heart and be sincere yourself and ask God, look, teach me, fix me, help me. Like Jennifer Hudson said in that movie, fix me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It seems like what really differentiated Malcolm X from a lot of the other followers of Nation was he had three things. He had sincerity, intelligence, and wisdom. Obviously, intelligence is something that I guess it's pretty obvious how you can inculcate that. But when it comes to wisdom and sincerity, how do you get those things?
How do you get wisdom and sincerity? Well, sincerity comes with your own desire to be right, to be sincere. You know, I never really thought about how do you know, get sincere. Just your commitment to wanting to be right, and you know, and stick to it. You know, there's a lot of things that can begin to tamper with your sincerity. You know, and you have to be mindful of that. Wisdom comes in time. You know, wisdom comes in time, and also it's a blessing from God. You know, and also it's acting upon the knowledge that you have and learning from other people's mistakes and learning from those that have gone before us. You know, because you have to learn. When we see other people going through things or whatever, we have to talk to people and learn and understand that you learn from other people's mistakes, and you also learn from other people's things that they didn't make mistakes. You know, it's not always mistakes that you learn from. You also learn from people that have been successful. You know, there's a book that's out called The Thinking of Successful People. I don't know if you all ever seen it. You can buy it at Walgreens or somewhere. And it's just an excellent book because it talks about people, you know, talking about success from a mundane perspective. But you just learn, man, and you just pray and you just ask, you know, and you live. You live life, you know, and try to be intelligent in everything that you deal with. Yes?
I think when we look at Malcolm and we look at Muhammad Ali, for example, he's two of the most famous Muslims ever. On top of Coach Kente, he was also a famous Muslim. But one of the challenges that little brother mentioned, the MSA, and being successful in individuals like this, one of the things we have to face in the U.S., particularly in the West, is the face of the Muslims. When we talk about Malcolm, he's a black man. He's been through these different things in oppression. He knows the society and can make specific arguments against the society that society, if you will, that oppressive institution, can't come and just try to water around. He's not fresh off the boat. He's not new. Mm-hmm. So if I were to go, for example, to even Egypt, I'm not Egyptian. Mm-hmm. So I would be looked at as an outsider, if you will, even if I had children in Egypt and stayed there for a few generations. Mm-hmm. So when I look at MSAs, I could kind of gauge their success or lack thereof when it comes to dawah, because they are not knowing the history of society, in particular, the history of the oppressed people in the country that they live in, they strive to reach out to. So we see many people reaching out and feeling good about reaching out, but they don't have a Muhammad Ali because they don't want to put the face of a Muhammad Ali who may have been through that issue, but may not want to have the face of a Muhammad Ali as a spokesperson. Muhammad Ali and Malcolm were both effective before they even accepted what we call Orthodox Islam. So they were willing to say stuff that they believed was the truth because they were sincere and they were articulate, even though it was wrong. Then when they accepted Islam, they made them that much more powerful. Mm-hmm. So until MSAs and other organizations recognize when it comes to Islam, you actually have Muslims from all over the world. We talk about how Islam spread to all these places and all this beautifulness and all this from the Caucasus Mountains to mid-Africa and all these different colors and so on. If you don't recognize the landscape that you're in and have a voice that people can recognize and relate to from that area, it's not going to be as successful as it can be because you're hitting that limit. Like if you came here and you're going to talk about Malcolm, I can accept that more than if Tim Wise, white guy, came here and talked about Malcolm, but Tim Wise could talk about white people in this whole system as opposed to you could talk about Malcolm more, and I respect it because you have something similar to Malcolm. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And until the MSAs recognize that, then they're gonna reach a certain level of success or feel goodness
Mhm.
that really doesn't go anywhere and reach out to more people and have more diverse audience and more people taking Shahada. That we must remember the Prophet Islam said that Islam is carried on the oppressed people's backs, on the poor people, on the low people of society. So if we neglect them, then we are doing ourselves a disservice and not being as effective as possible.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Jazakallah khair, Habibi.
I mean,
We'll take one more question.
Yes.
We'll take one more question.
Oh, one more question? Jazakallah khair. Hey, that's it then. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.